Hey everybody, welcome to day one, Breakfast with Bob from Challenge Miami. My name is Bob Babbitt. We're brought to you by Challenge North America, City Bikes, Veneto, Challenge Athletes Foundation, Florida Dairy Farmers, and Wahoo. Our next guest, Alissa Doehla, was 11th here at Challenge Daytona just a few months ago. How you doing, Alissa? That's the first time we've met.
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's really nice to meet you.
Well, and I look at your 2019 season where you were awesome, right? 9th and 15th and 3rd at Traverse City and 3rd at Waco, 2nd at Indian Wells. But coming that year must have felt so special because of what happened to you in 2018. Talk a little bit about hit and run driver, not knowing, you probably didn't know if you were ever going to race again.
Yeah, I really didn't know how I'd feel about getting back on a bike. I think I was really helped by the fact that I don't remember the accident at all.
That's probably a good thing. Yeah. You don't have nightmares and stuff.
No, and I just woke up in the hospital, even though I'd been awake the whole time, but my memory didn't come back till being in the hospital. So I think that helped a lot. But yeah, it was a long road. I think I thought it was going to go a lot quicker, and I put a lot of pressure on myself with hearing other people's stories, like, oh, they were back at this point or at this point. And for me, everybody's different, and it kept taking a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and then I had knee surgery at the end of 2018 from the accident, and so the beginning of 2019 was a little rough, but by the end I felt like I'd found my stride again. Yeah.
Well, and then coming here to Daytona, and it's only the all-star game and the best women in the world, and getting 11th in that field. What were your thoughts? Yeah,
I was really, really happy. I didn't really know what to expect because I haven't done a world championships yet, just for a variety of reasons. And so it's kind of my first experience racing that level of women all in one place. And so I thought I'd be happy with 20 something. And so 11th was, I was kind of over the moon.
It's so funny because people look at it and go, oh gosh, 11th, but you're talking 40. I mean, there was like 40 of the top women on the planet, from long distance to mid distance to Olympians. And to get 11th in that field, give you a sense of where you're at right now and how recovered you are from your accident?
Yeah, it really did. And it made me feel like there's hope and a reason to keep going after a year that felt so strange, 2020, and just kind of just feeling a lot of unknowns of, do you keep doing this if we're not even sure how racing is going to be? And so, it definitely was like, okay, I have a place in this sport, and I can keep going.
So let's talk running a little bit, because you ran pro 2009, 2015. Talk a little bit about running at that level, 2011 on the U.S. bronze medal team, world cross country, world marathon team. Did you feel like, okay, I'm going to stay in this and be a professional runner? What was the transition to, because you're obviously having a lot of success as a runner.
Yeah, I definitely had foreseen myself staying with running for a long time. I thought I would try triathlon someday,
down the line.
Yeah,
recreationally when I'm done.
As a way to be competitive
at something, and that stuff, right?
Right. Yeah, and then I just had some really weird, really hard years with running. Had a couple weird injuries, and had some personal issues that just kind of rocked my world a little bit. I didn't talk about it for a long time. Yeah. So now I try to talk about it because I think people experience it in sport. But I was sexually harassed by a sports psychologist that I'd worked with for a really long time. Which
now has become a lot more, I think people are coming forward because it's more prevalent than anybody knows.
Yeah, and I think in sport we're kind of vulnerable to that because we're so driven and we want to, please coaches and people in authority and make them proud of us. And so I think it opens it up to people that will take advantage of that. And I think people should be aware that it can happen. And I had a lot of definitely guilt around it because I felt like if I were a different person, I would have stopped it sooner. I kept making excuses like, I thought he had a brain tumor. His personality, it changed so much so quickly that I was like, he must have a brain tumor. That's why he's saying these things to me. It's going to stop. And then it was finally, it was through talking to my husband, and he was like, you have to tell your dad, you have to take steps to remedy this. And so that just kind of dropped the bottom out of my boat, because it was like, this was a person who had been outside of my family, had told me, you can run and you can make the Olympic team for Rio, you can, and then afterwards you're smart, like you can go to grad school, you can, you know, do counseling, you can do all of these things that I was putting on hold for running.
Right.
And it made it feel, I was validated in that somebody with, you know, he's a counselor himself, like, and he's saying like, it's okay to wait on that, and it's okay to pursue this dream, and that it'll still be there, and you are smart enough to do it. And then afterwards, it felt like maybe I'm not. Maybe that was all just, you know, it just.
You questioned yourself.
Yeah, and everything he had ever said to me. So it was just, there were a year in there that it was, it made me feel like running had no purpose, and
running almost felt dirty.
It did.
Yeah.
It really did. It was very strange. And in that time, we were getting married, we were moving, and there was just a lot of life transition happening that running joy was just really stolen from me in a way that I just was like, I've been doing this at a very high level since I was 15 years old, and I think I need to like take a step back. And I think it was really good. And I took up triathlon just to stay in shape, to fit in my wedding dress. And my poor husband thought he was marrying a runner, and he got a triathlete, which has been...
He thought, boy, this running takes a lot of time. Oh, wait a second. Now she's adding 2 more sports and a bicycle.
And it gets way more expensive.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
No, when I look at your, like, 15:28 for 5,000, 32:14 for 10,000, I mean, that's legit. That's real stuff. And when you moved to triathlon, did you move in, 2016, 2017?
Yep.
Yeah, and immediately Rookie of the Year, 4 consecutive top 3 finishes at Ironman 70.3 races, where you're thinking, oh, this is pretty easy. This isn't that bad.
I actually thought this is the hardest thing I've ever done, which I think was funny, because we had always kind of, as a runner, I feel like we had looked at triathletes as like, oh, it's unfortunate. Yeah, they're the runners who couldn't like run that well, so they switched to triathlon. And then I switched to triathlon, and I was like, oh, I take back everything I ever said. I'm sorry, it's so hard. But I found I really liked it.
Yes.
You know, I think it's just, there's something exciting about getting to do all 3 things, and if one doesn't go well, there's still time to fix it in the other 2. And
it's
I
pretty
just love
pure.
that. It is.
You know, I found when people come over from single sport and have been maybe a little jaded, because, you know, you're only as good as your last workout. You come over to this sport and you go, oh, I didn't have a good swim, but I had a good bike ride.
Yeah.
And I had a good run. And now, did you find a lot of times when you move into this triple sport thing and you're doing the swim and the bike, you end up running pretty well, right? Even with less running than you used to do. Would you train differently as a runner now if you had triathlon in your life back in the day?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because I do see how, I mean, just being like an aerobic monster.
Yes.
And then,
you need the speed, obviously.
Yeah,
you gotta
so
run
I think
to run.
it would, I do think it would influence what I would do if I decided like, oh, hey, I want to do a marathon next year or something. It would definitely have an influence on how I decided to train a little bit.
So what happened to the therapist who was inappropriate?
You know, it's crazy, and I feel like I need to go back. So my sister-in-law helped me report him to like the licensing board, but I never heard anything, and she never heard anything.
What?
And so
he's still functioning, still working.
Yeah. So it's been something that at the time, like just reporting him, it took me, and that's something that I think should change just in general, of like, you have 2 years, you know, for civil stuff with that, because we thought about kind of bringing a suit against him, but it had been 2 years by the time I was able to kind of talk about it and process it. So it took a lot just to report him, and just that felt good. But then now I'm like, okay, I kind of want to follow up on that and just like make sure somebody got that. Like I know they got it, but it's like, I don't understand.
So they didn't even come back and say, thank you for reporting, we will follow up.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No, never.
And
this
anything. Do you go through
the
USA Track and Field?
No, I went through the Indiana licensing board.
Okay.
So I don't know, but it is something that I want to go back and follow up on. I feel like I'm in a place where I can like do that now.
We're seeing more and more, you know, Mary Kane, Kara Goucher, a lot of athletes coming forward, and obviously what's happened in gymnastics. Athletes are just so vulnerable, especially at a young age.
Yeah.
You're going, well, this is the person. This is somebody who has been doing this for 30 years and their credentials, and it's so hard to come forward, right?
Yeah.
Because you feel like, well, I'm the only one.
Yep. And I just think athletes are, like you said, they're very vulnerable, because when you're in that space of striving so hard and you have people around you who are allegedly helping you do that, they have, you know, you don't want to say they have a ton of power, but they do, because you're listening to them and you believe what they say about
right.
you believe what they're saying about how you work out, your body, all of these things. And so I think, yeah, I want to help be part of normalizing talking about it, just so that there was actually an incident just in Indiana recently where a coach was like massaging athletes, like stuff like that I want to just say, kids, like, it's not, your coach shouldn't be doing the massages. Right. That's the athletic trainer. That's, you know, an actual massage therapist. That's not your coach's job. No. Like that's an inappropriate gateway, you know, just things like that, where if we talk about it, right. then other people will be aware that A, I can talk about it, and B, some of the things that are maybe gray, not normal, moving towards, right. you know, that type of stuff. So
yeah, that is scary stuff. And then the other part is when you did get, you know, when you were hit by the truck, we've seen this so many times. You're out riding your bike and you get hit by a car and they don't look at it. Basically, it's an assault, right? You were hit. This is like a assault with a deadly weapon. Yeah. Is the way you look at it. It's a couple 1,000-pound vehicle. Yes. Somebody hit you and left. Did it surprise you how it's like, oh, well, it's sort of like you were in your car and they were in their car and you had a collision at Starbucks. It's not like it's looked at that seriously.
Yeah, I think, honestly, that was what almost bothered me the most about getting hit, was that he left. Like,
Absolutely.
When I came to in the hospital, I was awake the whole time, but I didn't know what I was saying or anything. I just kept saying to my husband, he left? And he'd say, yeah, he hit you and he left. And I would just cry and say, he left? And yeah, he left, Alissa. And it was almost like it hurt my feelings. Like,
of course.
How could you leave me?
What human being leaves somebody? And you know, like you got a concussion, 2 fractured vertebrae, broken ulna, broken metacarpal, various ligament strains, and you don't really know where you're at. You're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You were sort of lucky someone found you.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I was on a road that I had seen 5 cars in, 2.5 hours. Yeah. And I was hit, and I put extra lights on my bike because it was kind of a gray, drizzly day. Yeah. It would, visibility was fine, but I was like, well, it's kind of dark. Maybe people won't think anybody will be out there. So I put extra lights on. And the people who found me said they don't usually go that way to go home from work. He was just like, I felt like I should go home that way today. And so they saw my lights blinking in the ditch, and I didn't know my name. I didn't know my phone number. I didn't know anything. I didn't know if I was married. I didn't know where I lived.
Oh, my God.
I remembered my husband's phone number.
That's it. Your husband's phone number.
Yeah. So
otherwise,
I don't know who
you'd be Jane Doe still sitting in a hospital somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. He would never have known for a lot longer. Yeah. So they were able to call him and got an ambulance and everything. But yeah, it was just, it made me realize, not that I ever was careless with driving, but just it puts driving into a much different perspective of, like you said, they're 2-ton potential murder weapons, if you think about it. I mean, it's a huge responsibility to drive. I'm a grandma now. I don't go over the speed limit. I am very alert and aware. Phone goes in the thing. It's just, it just makes you realize, A, life is precious, which I think is a cliche, but it's true. And B, pay attention when you're driving.
Well, and I bet you the part that drove you crazy, like you said, how could he just leave me there? But also, he never apologized.
No.
I mean, the deal is...
and that hurt my feelings too. Or I just was he never admitted that he hit me. And they knew it was him because pieces of his bumper came off. And they were able to match, like a puzzle, the pieces to his bumper. So they knew it was him. It was just I don't know, just say you're sorry. It would be nice.
You got me. A buddy of mine in San Diego was on his mountain bike riding on a road and got hit, same type of thing. And the woman who hit him drove off, and in the rubble left behind was her license plate, all right? License plate laying in the rubble.
Oh, no.
And he did while he's in the hospital, they gave him a photo lineup, right? He looked at 5 photos and picked her out over and over. And she was like, oh, no, I was at work. She had somebody punch in for her out in, out in like a place.
She couldn't have been there.
Oh, I couldn't have been there. My car was stolen, all this type of stuff.
Oh,
and it's like,
wow.
And I think the policeman who I wrote a story about it.
Yeah.
And the policeman actually called me up and said, if anything in this story is true, we'll start an investigation. But we look at cases like this, like it's 2 cars in Starbucks and they bump into each other. We don't look at these as like a felony.
Yeah.
And I think that's just wrong.
It is, because you're on a bike. You're so much more exposed than a person in a car. You're on a bike.
You're on a bike, yeah.
There's no way you're going to come out well in a...
No. So have you had a chance to ride?
Yeah, I just did. I have a helmet head because I just rode.
What do you think?
It's a very interesting course with all the turns in the middle. I mean, I think it's going to really...
Some bike handling in here.
Absolutely,
and there's some wind.
Yes,
I mean, right now there's not much, but when you guys race, there'll be some wind.
But you could still feel what's out there right now.
Yeah.
So I do feel like the mid-afternoon, I think last time we looked, it was supposed to be like 15 miles an hour or something maybe at that time. So yeah, I do think that's going to definitely have an impact. It's very, very, it's definitely not like anything I've ever
Which
done,
is cool because I don't think anybody has ever done this, right? This is all brand new.
And it feels very strange we're from Indiana, so I've been on my trainer. So I was a little bit like, okay, well, this is back to riding outside, a lot of turns. It'll be interesting.
It'll be really fun. And great women's field. You got Lucy Charles and Annie Hogg, and you seem like one of those people who likes to go up against the best.
I do. Yeah, I just like to see where you're at, It's kind of fun.
Love it. One, I'm just glad you're back healthy.
Thank you.
That is scary, scary stuff.
Thank you.
Keep speaking out about, the last thing we need, our athletes are so young and vulnerable when they get into running or get into triathlon, and they need to know that it's okay to point things out that are wrong.
Yeah, and just to speak up when it starts feeling weird. I think that's the hairs on your back of your neck are standing up for a reason.
Yes.
Even if it seems small, I think people just, tell your parents, tell your significant other, your whoever, just to kind of get a read on it and stop it, or say, just whether it's okay or not. I think it's important to listen to your gut.
Absolutely. Alissa, thank you so much for taking time.
Yeah, thank you.
Alissa Doehla has been our guest again. Breakfast with Bob Challenge Miami. Stay tuned, everybody. We got a full day with some amazing athletes to follow. Thanks so much.